Welcome to Supporting Online Faculty by Kristen Jacobs. This presentation is designed to empower you to look at different ways that you can support your online faculty. According to Inside Higher Ed, 53% of students have taken an online course. And in order for these courses to be effective and learning to happen, faculty needs support in meeting the many needs of their students. In order for the faculty to be ready for this online learning, they need leadership and guidance. So this presentation will focus on some adult learning theories and different ways to support online faculty. And I'm going to work to address the concerns that you specifically shared with me and different ways that you can support your staff. Support beyond the screen addresses the idea that no matter how much technology one is immersed in, we are all still dealing with humans, and keeping that in mind will ensure a more successful online program and more connection with your online staff. There are some adult learning theories. I'm going to ground my presentation in two adult learning theories, and that's action learning and connectivism. And these are research-based and very practical. I'm going to model different ways that you can incorporate these learning theories into solving the problems that your online faculty faces. And I do believe that these learning theories will also apply to future situations that might arise, because as educators, we are always looking at different ways to improve our instruction and our connection and our ability to support each other and students. The first adult learning theory is called the action learning theory, and that is learning about actions one can take to solve problems. Often that includes group collaboration and solving problems through a cycle of specific planning, taking action, and reflecting. And I really like this learning theory because it can be used in many different scenarios with your staff. Students can use this learning theory, and it will apply to lots of different concerns and issues that might arise. I really like this graphic that shows how the action learning theory might work, where you've got your problem, the group that comes together, asking questions that need to be solved, taking action, learning, and you might incorporate a coach or some type of leadership. Again, before this interview, you identified 3 central concerns connected with supporting your online faculty. I'm going to share ways to use the action learning theory to address some of the issues, and the connectivist learning theory to possibly solve some of these problems. So the problems that you identified were staff providing meaningful feedback, and this is for their students, and staff providing meaningful feedback for one another. Accessibility in online classes, and connection and avoiding isolation amongst colleagues. Just to have a foundational definition of what we mean by providing meaningful feedback, I looked at this as frequently monitoring learning with comments, and that's kind of for students, but you might have frequent monitoring where staff is mentoring one another to help develop an online course, providing specific comments that connect to meeting the objectives and areas of growth. And then the ways to use it, I'm going to focus mostly on instructor to instructor, but this could be used from an instructor to a learner, the learner back to the instructor. Peers can use it with each other. There are lots of different ways to consider providing meaningful feedback. Some solutions to making sure that that feedback is meaningful is making sure that you could consider personalizing it with videos, ensuring that it's timely, that there are some clear rubrics or goals set. So if you're working and staff is working to provide feedback to one another, maybe they don't have a rubric, but maybe there's certain objectives that staff member wants to share with the other member, and that colleague is looking for those, whether those objectives were met or not, and that feedback could also be two-way. One specific way faculty can use feedback to personalize is to use videos, and so there are some endless opportunities and technologies available for video feedback, but some of the best options that I like are Vimeo, Frame.io, Screencastify, and Loom. If a staff member wanted to communicate with one another using action research to work together to kind of solve a problem, they could do this back and forth through videos. Again, this could be used for instructors and their students as well. Some things about feedback: it should be educative, not evaluative. It should be clear and focused on the goals, sensitive, thinking about the human behind that is receiving the feedback, timely, indicative of the performance, not the student. This ongoing dialogue is very helpful, and proportional, connected to the criteria and goals. And that's from JERS and SVET 2021. Another concern that you shared that arises amongst online faculty developing their courses is accessibility. So the idea that all learners have access to their online course materials and tasks, and how educators must meet the needs of the students with the differences, the various physical, visual, cognitive, sensory, and mental. It seems that it would be an excellent choice for a student with some differences to take an online class, but in fact, students are still having challenges because of lack of accessibility. And so we want to support our staff in making their ensuring their courses are accessible. And if we're using action research to do so, we've got this problem: is the course accessible? A group that comes together and asking questions and taking action. Some options for the group to ensure that their course is accessible would be to use Google accessibility tools. Canvas has a great accessibility checker. There's different ways that technology can help check for accessibility, but then also as humans, staff need to support one another and using maybe this Oscar rubric to evaluate their course, or providing video feedback based on the course before it's been published and sent to students, and finding ways to improve the course and check for things before it gets sent out to students. That's really, really critical in developing an online course that everybody can learn from. The next theory I want to talk about is a new learning theory called the Connectivist learning theory. And this is a 21st century learning theory, Searhat 2023. The idea is that this new learning theory incorporates all of the different technology pieces where we may find information. So that could be, AI or different social sites. We take all of this knowledge and all of these different nodes and kind of put these things together to form our perspective and understanding. So here are some characteristics of the connectivist learning theory. Knowledge includes diverse opinions. Learning is a process. Learning may reside in non-human aspects. Capacity to learn is growing. It's larger than we ever thought it could be. Connections are needed to continue to learn. And this is where you all addressed an area of concern amongst staff, your faculty, your online faculty, and the way they connect with one another. And then knowledge, where everything's should be up to date and things are always changing. And so we kind of need to stay on top of that, and we need to make sure our staff is staying on top of that. So the idea that teachers should connect and learn from one another and have a community and sense of belonging, even though they're online, and avoid disengagement and kind of burnout. So the connectivist learning theory is kind of a revision from cognitivism due to the idea that technology is such a big piece of our learning. And this learning is going to be more self-directed, and it's going to be active and always changing. So, in order to think about how to support staff in avoiding isolation and fostering connection, we know that faculty needs to be at their best to support students, and we want to avoid burnout. Institutions are often focused on the accomplishment of tasks and duties over connection, and that's really hurting our online faculty. So we know advanced technology can really help with connection, but doesn't solve everything. So I want us to think about some different ways that we can support our online faculty in being connected that doesn't just involve doesn't just involve technology. Faculty should be connected to peers and school managers. So, this graphic organizer is rooted in the connectivist theory that staff can learn from non human sources and links to one another on like blogs and social media. Capacity to learn is always growing. There's podcasts and videos and just really endless information. Of course, you have to check and make sure that it's verified and legitimate and consider biased and credible sources, but there is lots of information out there. Another way for your staff to be more connected is to consider in-person sessions. And so virtual is most likely going to be the best option for online faculty, but having even once a year or twice a year where you have these in-person sessions is going to really build that connection. You've got limited technology, so you've got more face-to-face interactions, your verbal and nonverbal cues, and it might be able to be a little bit more flexible. So again, we're going to connect this back to the connectivist learning theory. So some ways that your staff, faculty, your online faculty can be more connected is to celebrate accomplishments and feedback, or celebrate accomplishments and maybe positive feedback. You may want to pair some folks together and have mentors, even established staff that have been doing it for a while may enjoy being part of a small group that works together. Social media can also be used to collaborate and connect among staffs. There are lots of different technology based communication sites, and here are some listed. Maybe you have a weekly newsletter where staff can have dialogue and things are posted to kind of keep everybody connected. And another option for connection are faculty spotlights, where you highlight some different faculty and all of the great work they're engaged in. Just to summarize the presentation, there are two learning theories that faculty can utilize to guide their work and solve the issues they face when teaching online. One is not limited to considering these theories when looking at just online learning, but that was the focus here today: the action learning theory and the connectivist learning theory. And I went through some different ways some different issues and ways to solve them, providing meaningful feedback, accessibility in your online courses, and connection and isolation. And it is my hope that you are able to utilize some of these different solutions to support your online faculty as we all continue to learn and grow. Thank you so much for your time. And here are my references and citations.